Hello, everyone. I'm Dr. Marty Ross, and this is another Conversations with Marty Ross MD tonight. I'm glad to see a number of familiar names on my message board and also some new people here as well tonight. This is the last webinar that we're having in May and a number of days before Memorial Day. We actually have a little bit of a light turnout tonight, but I suspect it has to do with Memorial Day weekend coming up. So y'all may get a chance to have some of your questions answered tonight. We'll see. Also, sometimes more and more people add in the later we get into the webinars as well, too. I am creating a recording of tonight's webinar, so if you happen to miss something, you'll be able to hear it tomorrow. The way that this works is by around 9 or 9:30 in the morning tomorrow, you'll get an email from me saying that the recording is ready. If you happen not to get that email, you can find the recording by looking either on the homepage towards the bottom at treatlyme.net, which is my Treat Lyme by Marty Ross MD site. The other place you can find it is on the webinars page there too. And also on the website, treatlyme.com, which is my supplement store, Marty Ross MD supplement. You can find it scrolling down towards the bottom of the page. I posted it there too. I also posted on Facebook, and that's at facebook.com/treatlyme. And then there's the YouTube channel too, which you can click on my website. If you just click on the YouTube icon, you'll get to the YouTube channel. So there's plenty of places to find it, okay? The way these webinars work, you create them every week with your questions, and none of our webinars are exactly alike. Down here on the bottom of the right-hand side of the screen is where there's a chat box. Write your questions to me through that chat box. Click enter when the whole question is done. If you try to use the enter key to create paragraphs, it winds up sending multiple questions my direction. It gets really hard for me to manage, okay? Just a word of warning, as many of you know, I will answer all the questions as best I can. There's sometimes I may get stumped. If somebody is asking me a direct health question about what their diagnosis is or what a specific treatment should be, I may have to decline to answer that because I am not licensed here in Texas, as many of you know, and I don't want to get in trouble with my board, the medical board here, for diagnosing or treating without a license. So anyhow, but that still means there's a lot of leeway. I can answer a lot of the questions by just describing generally what works in certain situations and using your questions as a platform. Okay. All right. So, but I'll let you know if I can't answer specifically about that. Okay. All right. So let's go ahead and get started here. All right. Hello, Lynn. Let's see. Can one be on a low maintenance dose of doxy to prevent relapse and keep any existing bugs in check, or will this have worse side effects used long term? Also, does Lyme or any of the co-infections tend to cause intermittent tooth pain? It's not due to cavities, just an awkward pain in random teeth that comes and goes. Dentist is mystified. Have you seen this before with Lyme or BART or BABS? So, you know, in my practice, in my Seattle practice, I did see periods where people would have tooth pain. And one of the things that it could be, and this is something you'll have to talk with your dentist about too, is sometimes tooth pain is neurologic pain. All right. So the nerves of the teeth are causing that kind of pain. It is possible Lyme could do that by inflaming the nerves. It is also impossible, or not impossible, possible, Bartonella could do the same by inflaming the nerves too. So to answer your question, yeah, it's possible it could be part of a BART or Lyme, causing some intermittent periodic inflammation of that nerves, causing the pain to occur periodically. I have seen some similar situations like that in my practice, okay? All right. Then to the, in terms of preventing relapse, many of you may know that I have an article on my website called, oh boy, what is the, well, I'll look at the article with you together, but it's an article about what to do at the end of treatment, okay? And it's an article designed to figure out when are you done treating, but also what do you do to prevent Lyme from coming back? And yes, I and most of my colleagues think that when a person has chronic Lyme, not acute Lyme, but chronic Lyme, that there is a really good chance that even when we're done using antibiotics with a person, that the germ may still be living in you, knocked down to a level that the immune system can keep it under control, okay? So as part of what I like to suggest to my patients when I was treating that I would have them do, or there's certain steps you can do to boost the immune system. And in addition to those steps, for some people, it might be appropriate to actually use low dose antibiotics to survey the environment to kind of swat down any germs if they may come up, okay? So the steps that you would take to keep your immune system working well to help keep those germs under control, these are really some simple basic things. Number one, get sleep. Get 7 to 9 hours of sleep a night. Even if you're feeling better, don't forget to schedule the time to get sleep. And you may still need herbs to do that. You may still need prescription medicines to do that, but whatever it takes, make sure you're getting that 7 to 9 hours of sleep because that boosts the immune system, okay? Number two, get exercise to a level you can tolerate. Not a level that knocks you down the next day, but something that's tolerable, okay? So exercise is good for the immune system. Number three, deal with your emotional toxins, whatever those toxins are, okay? That could be dealing with counseling. It may mean making lifestyle changes to deal with some of that stress. It may mean doing sitting meditation. Whatever it is that you do to deal with stress, make sure you're dealing with your stress and minimizing those stress opportunities, okay? Because emotional stress really is a big immune system stressor, okay? Number four, eat organic foods. Don't put poisons in you. Number five, be on a good multivitamin. Number six, consider taking supplements that boost the immune system, okay? And there's a few things I like to think of. One is mushrooms is a possibility. Another one is transfer factor multi-immune. And another one is something called transfer factor L+. And I'll show you the article where you can look at that specifically so you can figure out which ones might you want to use, okay? But there's some options to boost the immune system, all right? And then finally, in a person that has had a relapse before, I was inclined in those patients when they were in my practice to actually start them on something low dose to keep the germs under control, okay? Now, that is antibiotic, either herbal or prescription. Doxycycline is one of those options. So for instance, I might have a person take it as 100 milligrams one time a day instead of 100 milligrams twice a day or 200 milligrams twice a day. Okay, that's one option. Other prescription antibiotics that I would use could be a clarithromycin, azithromycin, which is Zithromax, minocycline, although I would tend to use more of the doxycycline. Those are some options, okay? Herbal antibiotics that you could consider using at about half the normal dose you might use to actually be killing the germs might be to do a biocidin, for instance. That product called biocidin. You might consider doing half doses of otobabark and cat's claw. Those are herbs that do a good job of policing the environment as well too. Okay, all right. Now I have this all written down. I'm going to just do a quick screen share to show that to you. Let's see. I think. Let's see. Yeah, so I mean, Doxy is one I've used through long periods of times with some patients as part of their relapse prevention program. I don't see a problem doing that. Okay, all right. But again, these are things, especially when it comes to prescriptions and all of this, talk it over with your doctor to make sure it's the right thing for you too. I don't have the benefit of examining you to say it's right for you. Okay, all right. So let me do a quick screen share here. All right. So this is my Lyme disease information site, Treat Lyme by Marty Ross MD. For the article that you may want to take a look at, where I talk about what I just described to you, but also I put doses in of the antibiotics, for instance. Take a look at this chapter called Relapse. And I would read this article called Finished and How to Prevent Relapse. Okay. All right. All right, Lynn, thank you for the question. Good luck to you. Hello, Miranda. Hello, Dr. Ross. Good evening. Glad to be back. You and most LMD, let's see. You and most LMDs believe that we never completely eradicate Lyme disease. Rather, our immune system just gets it under control. That's exactly what I was just saying. My question is, given that our immune systems naturally decline in efficiency as we age, what can people with Lyme disease expect as they get older? I'm only 34. Do you have much experience working with patients late in their life? Yes, I do. I have, in my practice in Seattle, I started treating Lyme in 2004 until last year. Okay, so over those years, I saw people of all ages. I'm a family physician. My background is being a family physician. That's what I was trained in. And so I managed in my practice young kids all the way up to old, very, very old patients at times. What I can tell you is we really don't know if Lyme gets more active as a person gets older. I didn't have anything in my practice to suggest that. And nor have there been any studies done that look at that question. It's a great question. But we really don't know if there is an immune system decline that results in Lyme getting more active the older a person gets. And based on my experience, I didn't see such a situation. And it doesn't mean it doesn't exist. It just means I didn't see that. Okay? All right. That's a great question, though, Miranda. Thank you. Good luck to you. Hello, London. Let's see. Hi, Dr. Marty. What are your thoughts on high doses of vitamin C for people with SOD2 A16V genetic mutation? So I guess let me just take a different tack with you. Okay, I don't know specifically. I don't know that specific mutation. I would have to look into it. Okay, but I even want to step back one step further. All right, so by high dose, let me describe what I mean by high dose vitamin C and see if that's what you mean, and then I'll talk about high dose vitamin C. So high dose vitamin C can often means taking around 30 grams to 50 grams. And when you use those kind of doses, you've got to do it in an IV form, okay? If that's what you mean by high dose, then what I'm about ready to say applies to you whether you have a genetic mutation or don't, okay? All right. So what happens so many of you know vitamin C is an antioxidant, okay? But that's at low doses. That's at like 1,000, even up to 10,000 milligrams a day. And the thing about taking vitamin C, if you start getting more than 10,000 milligrams a day in a pill form, you're probably going to get diarrhea. It winds up really loosening up your stools and can cause loose, watery stools, actually, okay? So one thing that limits you from taking higher doses orally is what it does to the intestines. But when you take it at super high doses, at that 30 to 50 grams, what happens is inside of our bodies, it triggers a lot of oxidizing agents to be made, okay? So in other words, high dose vitamin C doesn't operate as an antioxidant, it operates as an oxidizing agent, all right? And oxidizing agents can increase germ killing, possibly, although I'm going to say more about that here in a second. But what they do is they can lead to damage of fat membranes, including the fat membrane that makes up the cell fat membrane that makes up the covering of germs, and possibly our own cell fat membranes as well too. Okay, all right. Now, one of the best studied oxidizing agent treatments is ozone. Okay, and there's been quite a bit of studies looking at that. And what's interesting about ozone is in petri dishes, it can kill. But if you add even small amounts of a person's blood into the test tube that has the germs, and then you add in ozone to it, the killing doesn't take place at all. Okay, and this is small amounts of blood, all right? And probably one of the reasons is that ozone is deactivated quickly, even in small amounts of blood, because blood is full of antioxidants that would reverse the oxidizing effect of the ozone, okay? So although it may be true that ozone and high dose vitamin C could kill germs, the reality is probably inside of us, they're not the best germ killers because they're neutralized pretty quickly within the bloodstream, okay? So one of the things, though, we do know from the ozone studies is that when people take ozone, they do feel better right away, quite a bit, okay? And it has something to do with ozone, especially. And I'm not quite sure about vitamin C, but ozone, when it gets brought down into the cells, actually results in an oxygen burst within the cell energy factories called mitochondria, giving them more of the oxygen they need to run better, okay? So one of the reasons people may feel better when they're getting ozone or maybe even high dose vitamin C is that their energy factories in the body may be doing better, okay? But I am skeptical that we actually get good germ killing I know that I had a number of patients in my practice that would try high dose vitamin C, or they would try ozone. They would try UV blood radiation, okay, like UV B light or UVA light. Those are other ways to do oxidizing agent treatments. And I know that some of them would feel better for a while, but I didn't see lasting changes, okay? And so I'm not a big believer in using those treatments as your main way of killing germs, okay? They may help your mitochondria work better, your energy factories work better, but long-term, I don't think they're the greatest way to go, okay? All right. And I just don't know specifically that genetic mutation to be able to comment directly to you about the vitamin C in that, okay? All right. Thanks, London. All right, I'm going to do a quick screen share here because I just want to show if you all want to take a look a little bit more at the article I've written about that. All right, so if you take a look on my online guide, let's see, where would I put that? I think I put the article here in the anti-germs chapter. Yeah, there it is. So here's the article I've written about ozone, hydrogen peroxide, vitamin C, UV blood radiation, okay, and their potential as germ killers, but more probably the way they're working is actually helping your mitochondria work better, okay? But that's the whole article on it. All right. All right. Thank you for that question again. Let's see here. Hello, Janelle. Let's say hi, Dr. Ross. I contracted Lyme in 2013, had a bullseye rash, but wasn't diagnosed until 2018. My doctors have been testing my CRP level since 2016, and it always comes back normal. One of my doctors says it's impossible to have Lyme with a normal CRP. Oh, boy. I don't agree with that, but anyhow, is it possible to have active Lyme with the normal CRP? Is there a reason why mine would always be normal, even when my Lyme symptoms are really bad? Thanks. Yeah. So it's interesting, you know, in conventional medicine, Western medicine, there's a couple blood tests we've used to see if there is inflammation in the body. Okay, one of those is the C-reactive protein, also called CRP for short, okay? And there's another one called the sedimentation rate, or the SED rate, is what that is known as too. And I will tell you, in all my years of managing Lyme, those tests generally came back normal in people, even when they were totally flared up and inflamed, all right? So while that might be true that CRPs would be elevated in people with regular types of arthritis, like rheumatoid arthritis or lupus arthritis, and sometimes they'll even be elevated in somebody who has chronic active infection. For some reason, that is not the situation that applies in Lyme, okay? So although I understand your one provider saying, oh, it would have to be elevated, no, that is not the case. And you can't take what we know from other illnesses and always apply it to Lyme. Lyme is its own animal, as many of you know, okay? So the answer is, yeah, you can have normal CRP and have very active Lyme, all right? And why that happens, we don't entirely know, okay? All right. Thank you for the question, Janelle. Hello, Megan. Hi, Dr. Ross. In your tier 3 protocol for Bartonella, can I take the Sita Acuta 2 times a day versus 3? Is 1/2 teaspoon upon waking and 1 teaspoon at bedtime to double the dose? Okay. All right. So I'm going to take your questions one at a time. Okay. And I'm not going to answer this for you because I can't tell you directly what to do, just because, again, I'm not licensed here in Texas to give medical advice. Okay. But I can describe in general what a person with using these herbs can do. All right. So when a person uses Sita Acuta, what I have found best is to actually take it 3 times a day. And that is, I think it works best bathing the germ in a more constant level in terms of its killing effect than taking it twice a day. And even if a person were to take it a lot more than I recommend 2 times a day, what you're going to get, the way it's going to happen, you're going to take it, the dose in you is going to go up high, the level is going to go up high, and then it's going to go down low. It's going to stay low, and then it's going to go up high again, okay? But if you take it 3 times a day, you go up, and you just kind of keep up a little bit higher, okay? The way that drug dynamics work is when you take something frequently, it tends to make it so that there's more of a level in you at all times, versus if you take something that gets cleaned out of the body quickly, only 2 times a day, what you're going to do is you're going to go up and down, and then up and down, okay? So this is one of those herbs that I prefer. When I was treating patients, I found the best result by taking it 3 times a day. And my experience was that when somebody would try to increase the dose to take it 2 times a day, it just tended not to work as well, okay? All right, that's my observation on that, okay? Number 2, if I have Bart and Lyme, which should I treat first, or can I treat them together with herbs? What if I did Sida and Hootenea for Bart plus Biocide and LSF for Lyme? Okay, so in my experience, when I was managing Lyme disease, and again, this is for anyone, okay, not just specifically your question, but a person that has co-infections, what I found best was to treat both your Lyme and the co-infection at the same time, okay? Now, if you happen to have 3 co-infections, or Lyme and 2 co-infections, like Bartonella and Babesia, my observation was that the best scenario was to do Lyme and Bartonella first. Once you had Bartonella cleared, then I found it useful to add in the Babesia treatment. But the reason I made that decision was based upon the observations of Burrascano. Burrascano was one of the Lyme pioneers. He was from New York State, and was one of the pioneers of Lyme. Many of you probably know his name, although he hasn't been treating for a while, so many people don't know his name anymore, but he was one of the pioneers. And his observation in his practice is that if he had somebody that had Lyme, Bartonella, Babesia, and he took care of the Babesia before dealing with the Bartonella, it made it harder to get over the Bartonella, all right? And that was somewhat my observation as well, too. So usually I would treat 2 co-infections together. That was what I would do, okay? And then in terms of if a person is trying to treat Bartonella and they're trying to use herbs to do it, and they're trying to treat Lyme and they're trying to do herbs to do it, there's a couple ways that a person could go with that. One is for Bartonella, they could do the Sida acuta and the Hootenea the way that I describe in my information about how do you treat Bartonella, okay? And for Lyme, a person could either, and I think this would be okay, for the Lyme, they could either do a Biocide and LSF, which could be mixed with, I would mix with the Sida acuta and the Hootenea, okay? Or the other option that I would have people do would be to do an Otoba and a cat's claw, all right? Now, if a person is doing Otoba, cat's claw, Sida, and Hootenea, they can be taken all together at the same time, literally mixed in the glass of water together and taken at the same time. Although I realize the Hootenea, there's a time of day you would take it that's in the middle day. So Hootenea is 3 times a day. I'm sorry. Excuse me, not Hootenea. Sida acuta is 3 times a day. Hootenea, Otoba, and cat's claw are twice a day, okay? So at the time that you're taking all of those, the morning and night, you can take them together and then just take Sida acuta in the middle of the day. That's how I would have patients do it, okay? But those herbs are all okay to put together for anyone that's trying to use those as a means of treating, okay? All right, let's see. I'm having major flares and arthralgia from the Sida Hootenea combo. Are these herbs so specific to Bart that my response is diagnostic? Or could that's a good question. So one thing, and again, I don't know exactly from your situation because I haven't gotten to ask you thousands of questions. I haven't been able to examine you, but I'm just going to describe a general person that gets worse when they're taking a Sida and Hootenea, okay? So my observation was Sida, well, actually Sida, we know, and even Buhner, as in Buhner Herbs, writes about this. Sida is an herb that can kill Lyme and it can kill Bartonella, okay? So when somebody flares, it may be that it's because of the Herxheimer reaction from killing Lyme and has nothing to do with killing Bartonella. All right, I'll come back to that in a minute, okay? Now, Hootenea, Buhner, as in Buhner Herbs, writes about Hootenea being a good antimicrobial for Bartonella. He doesn't really describe it as an antimicrobial that kills Lyme, though, okay? I think, based on my clinical experience when I was using it, that some people would get some Lyme killing effect from Houtenille, although I would never use it as a single agent to go, or as a major agent to go after Lyme. I would think it would be too weak, okay? All right, so because Lyme is a spirochete germs are ones that tend to give you Herxheimer reactions, all right? Bacteria like Bartonella tend not to give Herxheimer reactions. So when one is flaring on herbs, I tend to think it is more from the killing of Lyme than it is from killing Bartonella. So I would not use a killing reaction as something that would help diagnose Bartonella. It wouldn't be the way that I would suggest going for a person. Okay? All right. Good luck to you, Megan. Thank you for that question. Hello, Judy. Hi, Dr. Ross. Do you or have you used Galaxy Diagnostics Lab? If so, do you think they are good? My doctor is now using them. Thank you for helping us so freely with these free webinars. So you're welcome, by the way. So Galaxy Labs is a good lab, and my experience is that it was a good lab. So they're doing a test. I think that is one of the best tests out there to look for Bartonella. However, just like the other labs that do Bartonella testing, whether it is your local hospital lab or whether it's the Bartonella testing through IGeneX or any other lab, the difficulty with all of these labs is they are not testing for all the strains. We don't have the ability to test for all of the strains, okay? So depending on who you read, what science you look at, we think that there's around 28 to 30 different strains of Bartonella and that about 17 of them can infect humans, okay? And most labs have the ability to look and see if you have evidence of about 2 of those. So even if you get negative testing back, even from a Galaxy, it doesn't mean that you don't have Bartonella in you. And so for that reason, my tendency in my practice was always to look and see clinically, what do I think is happening? Because I think that has more relevance in this infection than using laboratory testing, all right? And so the big things to look at to see if you might have Bartonella are the symptoms. And if you have a lot of those symptoms, then my tendency was to treat for it, okay? All right, so let me just do a quick screen share. I'll show you where you can look at the symptom list here. All right, so take a look at my article called How to Diagnose, or my section called How to Diagnose. And this article called It Could Be Bartonella or Babesia, the Symptoms and Signs. In this article, I have a list of Bartonella symptoms and I have a list of Babesia symptoms, okay? And so just like I suggest not relying on blood testing for Bartonella diagnosis, it's the same thing with Babesia too. I usually suggest that people look and see what the symptoms say. Babesia, we think there's like upwards of about 15 to 20 strains of Babesia, and we're only decent for testing about 2 strains as well too. Okay, all right. Go back here. All right, thanks for a question, Judy. Okay. All right, let's see here. Angela has written me a question, and unfortunately, Angela, it's going to be too long for me to post here, and it is so long and full of specifics that I would rather not answer it in this kind of a forum. I tell you what I'm going to have you do, Angela. I'd be glad to answer this, but I'm going to do it offline with you. If you could take your question and write, so this format works best for small questions, okay? Not huge, long ones like that you've written here. It becomes impossible for me to relay the information. I can't actually post this question because what it does, when I've tried posting a question this long before so everyone could read it, it locked up my whole computer. So I don't even want to touch it. Okay. All right. So what you can do, feel free to write this to me. My email, you could send this question to me and I will respond as best I can without, again, because I'm not licensed, I can't tell you directly what to do, but I can give you generalities. Okay. I'm not licensed here in Texas, that is. I'm still licensed in Washington State, but not here in Texas, which is where I live, and the medical board would have concerns here. So anyhow, my email to send it to is Marty Ross MD, that's MartyRoss MD at treatlyme.com. And that's TREATLYME.com. Okay. All right. Thanks for that. Hello. Okay. Let's see. Hi, Dr. Marty. I have MTHFR homozygous at C677T. My LMD had me taking 1 Methylguard plus per day. However, the bottle says to take 3. Should I up this? Also, I finished antibiotics in December and did 30 drops a day of cat's claw and Otoa for a few months and have now decreased the dose to 15 drops a day to patrol the environment. I think you said that once. Yes, I did, actually. The doctor had me taking almost double what the bottle says while I was treating. Thanks for all you do and have a great holiday weekend. I hope everyone, I hope you have a great holiday weekend, and everyone that's listening and here in the States, I hope you have a great weekend too. I know that, I'm not sure if Canada, if you're going to have your long weekend coming up at all or not. I can't keep it all straight, but anyhow, thank you. All right. So everyone, MTHFR means, is an enzyme. It's called methotetrahydrofolate reductase. That's a mouthful. Okay. And so it's an enzyme that's involved in detoxification. And specifically, the master detox chemical that's made in every one of our cells is something called glutathione. All right. And it's made in every one of our cells. It fixes things. But in the liver, in addition to fixing things, it also is used to detox fat-based toxins out of our body. Okay. So it's the major detox chemical. All right. Now, to get to glutathione, the liver has to go through a bunch of other chemical reactions. And the first one, starting way up here in a process called methylation, is to be able to take folate from our diet and activate it, okay, into an activated form. And the enzyme that does that is the MTHFR, methotetrahydrofolate reductase, okay? All right. So if there's a defect in that enzyme, you're not going to get enough of the diet folate converted into activated folate, all right? And that activated folate, which is something called 5-methotetrahydrofolate, it's a mouthful too, that is then used to set up a number of other reactions, each that does a little bit of detoxification, but ultimately resulting in the big detoxification chemical called glutathione down here, all right? So if somebody has a defect in that gene, that's going to, which an MTHFR defect means you have a defect in one of the genes that creates the MTHFR enzyme. It causes that enzyme to be deformed and it doesn't work correctly. All right. All right. Now, there's two main ones that we get concerned about. One is the C677T gene, and there's another one called the A1298C gene. Okay. What I found in my practice is the people that tended to get the most benefit by treating for MTHFR are people that had a double mutation of the C677T and a double mutation of the 1298C, okay? All right, and what I mean by double mutation, it means that the part they got genetically from their mom and the part they got genetically from their dad were deformed, okay? All right, so the people that had the most benefit from correcting for MTHFR are the people that have what's called a homozygous or double mutation at two genes, the C677T and the A1298C, okay? If somebody had less of a mutation than that, it was my experience that I really did not find much benefit correcting. All right, I just want to let you know. I would still try it sometimes if there wasn't anything else I was finding to help a person. But if somebody had less of a mutation than that, I, in general, did not find much benefit treating. I would tell you, it was about maybe 4 or 5 years ago. Most of us were trying to correct this MTHFR. So everyone was trying it, okay? But all I can relate is what my experience says, and that is that people that got the most benefit were people that had a double mutation of both genes. In this situation, I didn't find everyone get benefit from treating, okay, which is you have a homozygous just at the C677T, okay? Now, my tendency would have been to work up to the 3 methyl guard plus. But I will tell you, I don't know your full situation. And so I'm not telling you to do that. I think you need to talk to your provider and say, hey, Dr. Ross says he would work up to 3 capsules a day. What do you think? Okay, because I don't know enough about your situation to give you direct advice on that. Okay, nor can I give you direct advice where I am here in Texas. But you should talk to them and just see if they would go up a little bit higher. Okay, all right. All right, so the methyl guard that she's talking about, everyone, has the activated folate in it. That would be the 5-methotetrahydrofolate. It also has some methylated B12 in it, which also helps in this situation as well. Okay? All right. Thanks, Kate. Good luck to you. Hello, Lisa. Hold on here just a minute. Let's see. Hi, Doc. I've been on and off antibiotics for 6 years, and although overall I am improving slowly, I am concerned about being on them for so long. When should one stop, and if symptoms return, should one go right back on them? Thoughts on Cowden? Finally, what is the least thing to do to detox daily? Thanks for all you do. Okay. I'll start with thoughts on Cowden first. So the Cowden protocol, my experience is it just generally didn't work well for a lot of people. Right? I know there's some people that get benefit out of it. The parts of Cowden that I liked the best actually was the Houtenilla that he suggested using for Bartonella, although he doesn't say that in his protocol. And then the Otoba and the cat's claw, which are the Banderol and Cemento. Banderol is Otoba and Cemento is cat's claw, okay? Now, Cowden pulses us. I think you're using the cat's claw, I think, for 2 months on and then 2 months off. I found it better just to use those 2 continuously. And in fact, in my own protocol for treating Lyme, the Ross Lyme support protocol, the 2 herbs, if you're going to do it herbally, because I also recommend you can do it prescriptively too. But if a person is to do it herbally, the 2 herbs I like using are Otoba and cat's claw, used continuously, okay? Other parts of Cowden, I just don't think work that well. I don't think that the way that he suggests detoxing with the Panella and Berber really make much of a difference. He doesn't have built into his protocol, there are no parts that actually decrease cytokines. Cytokines are the inflammatory chemicals made by the immune system when they see Lyme, and they give you most of your Lyme symptoms and they actually suppress the immune system. So I'm surprised that Cowden doesn't have anything in it that does that. And until recently, Cowden did not build in anything that was supporting your adrenals, although I think now there may be an ashwagandha that's built into it too. But I think a more comprehensive protocol is actually what I suggest in the Ross Lyme support protocol, but you have to read through and figure out what parts of it work for you. Okay, all right. So anyhow, my thoughts on Cowden, I just don't think it works that well for most people. In terms of detoxing, my thing that I suggest that the least thing that you can do, number one, don't put toxins in. Okay, so that way you don't have to remove them. So eat organic. I know it's more expensive, but I think for people with Lyme, that is a better way to go. All right. The second thing I like to do in terms of helping with detox is pretty simple. And drink plenty of water. You're going to support kidney detox that way. Okay. And a general rule of thumb is to take your body weight in pounds and cut that amount in half. And that's how many ounces of water that you should drink a day. An average person should drink a day. Okay. So for instance, a 150-pound person, half of that would be 75. That means 75 ounces of water a day. Okay. So support kidney detox. Okay. And then finally, I usually suggest that people take something to support liver detox. And what I like best is glutathione. I mean, just taking glutathione. Although liposomal glutathione, which is the variety I like, liposomal means it's glutathione that's microscopically wrapped in fat. Liposomal glutathione can sometimes be expensive. It's not the most inexpensive product to take, okay? But if a person is taking liposomal glutathione, and the product I like for that is something called Trifortify by Research Nutritionals, and they actually have studies that show that it actually does result in better levels of glutathione in the cells, okay? In the red blood cells is what they measured. But it actually is one company that shows their product does get better absorbed. And of that product, I like having people take 5 milliliters, which is a teaspoon one time a day. If finances are more of a concern, and they probably are, another way to raise glutathione is to take the building blocks. And one of those that a person can take that sometimes can be helpful is to take 500 milligrams of N-acetylcysteine, also called NAC, 3 times a day. That's a building block for glutathione that can sometimes help as well too. Okay, all right. The other thing that when people have been on antibiotics for a long time that I think is really important to do is to support the gut. Because keep in mind that the gut has all these bacteria that line it. We call it the gut microbiome. And those healthy bacteria in the gut have a lot of different functions. Some of their function is regulating the immune system. Some of their function is detoxing within the intestines. They'll pull toxins out, okay? And the problem is by being on all these prescription antibiotics to a greater degree, and to some degree, even beyond herbal antibiotics, we are disturbing the makeup of the gut microbiome. And it's a risk benefit. So there's the risk in not doing anything about your Lyme germ load. In other words, not killing it, okay? And there's risk in using the germ killers. In other words, we may be knocking down the good bacteria that line the intestines as well too, okay? But at some point, probably you need to knock your germs down. So you're risking upsetting the balance of the good bacteria in the intestines, okay? So one thing that I think is really important is when you're on antibiotics, and even in the periods when a person is off antibiotics, is to make sure you're taking steps to replenish the good and support the good bacteria in the intestines, all right? And one of the things I like to have people take, as I think it does a good job, is a soil-based probiotic. Soil-based probiotics are ones that come from the soil, and in a bottle they're actually in a spore form, so they're in a protected form, so they don't need to be refrigerated, okay? And because they're spore form, they can actually get through the acid of the stomach and get a better job of repopulating your intestines. As spore forming probiotics, they do a good job of supporting the good bacteria that already live there, and they may even repopulate to a degree themselves too. I would have a person take 2 to 4 of those one time a day, okay? So a spore-forming probiotic, okay? A soil-based spore-forming probiotic. At my store, I carry a couple products. One is Core Biotic by Research Nutritionals is one. There's another one called ProFlora by Biobotanical Research. That also is a spore-forming probiotic, okay? But be on a spore-forming probiotic. 2 to 4 pills one time a day. In addition, if you've really been on antibiotics for a long time, I would usually have a person take what I would call human type probiotics. And those would be things that have lactobacillus and bifidobacteria in them. All right. Those are the kind that need to be refrigerated. All right. And I would have a person take 2 to 4 one time a day of that as well too. So supporting the gut bacteria also helps with GI intestinal level detoxification, so they're not there to get reabsorbed back into your bloodstream. Okay. All right. All right. Thanks for the question, Lisa. So actually, let me just do a quick screen share here too. Okay, so I think maybe last month or the month before, I did publish an article about my review on probiotics. And in here, I talk about the actual products I would recommend as well too, okay? But it's this article called Probiotics and Lyme Treatment. And I talk about soil-based as well as the human-based probiotics here too, okay? All right. All right. Thanks for the question. Good luck to you. Hello, Colleen. Let's see. Is there a test to tell if your mitochondria are malfunctioning? I'm dealing with constant fatigue and weakness that intensifies intermittently throughout the day. P.S. I've always wondered why some symptoms are intermittent and others are constant. Do you know? Thank you for sharing your wisdom. So, it's a good question. There are companies that do have tests that you can test for the various chemicals that are made as part of the chemical reactions in the mitochondria. Okay, so everyone, mitochondria are your energy factories. And we estimate there's about 300 to 400 mitochondria in a cell. Inside your mitochondria is where fat and sugar are burned through a bunch of chemical reactions into cell fuel. Cell fuel is something called ATP. Okay, all right. So that's what a mitochondria is. In Lyme and in chronic infections, those mitochondria can get injured. And specifically, the covering of the mitochondria can get injured. That covering is made up of a double layer of fat. And when you have chronic infection in you, that leads to an oxidizing state where the immune system, in trying to get rid of germs, is releasing oxidizing agents that can sometimes do some damage to the mitochondrial membrane. All right. So my practice was, whenever I was treating somebody, and we were about 6 to 9 months into treatment with antibiotics and doing hormone support with like ashwagandha, for instance, and making sure they got sleep and knocking cytokines down with curcumin. All those things are built into my Ross Lyme support protocol, doing those key steps. But if we were 6 to 9 months in and a person isn't getting better or they're having major fatigue still, that's at a point where I would start trying to do things to repair and support the mitochondrial function. Okay. All right. All right. And now I'm going to say more about that here in a minute. Let's see here. I'm dealing with constant fatigue and weakness that intensifies intermittent. Yeah. In my experience is that mitochondria injury, and this is based upon doing things that would then fix the mitochondria and seeing a person got better, is that with mitochondria injury, you actually can have some fluctuation of your symptoms. And I think what it has to do with it, so the mitochondria, again, they're supposed to produce ATP. All right. Now, if they can't produce enough, they may be producing a little bit and you exhaust that just by doing activity. That makes your symptoms worse then. Okay. So it may be just that they're running on empty and barely making enough energy to get by. Okay. All right. So how do you fix mitochondria? Well, one thing you want to do in mitochondria repair is you want to fix the membrane of the mitochondria. All right. The other thing that is really important, especially if a person is a vegetarian, is to take something called carnitine. And I liked using a variety of that called acetyl L-carnitine. Okay. And so you have to fix the membrane that gets damaged. You have to take acetyl L-carnitine, especially if you're a vegetarian. If you're not a vegetarian, don't worry about it. You're probably getting enough. But carnitine comes from red meat. All right. So if you don't have any red meat in your diet, you're probably running short on carnitine. And what it's used for is it's used to carry fat from the outside of the mitochondria to the inside so it can be burned into cell fuel. All right. So it's a transport vehicle. And if you are a vegetarian and you have mitochondria injury, then you want to take 500 milligrams twice a day for at least a month, then decrease it down to 1 time a day. Okay. All right. Okay. Now back to your other part here. I'm hopping around here. Is there a good way to test for it? The answer is no. Even though there are companies that look to see if you can measure various of the chemicals that are made as part of creating ATP, measuring these various chemicals, I don't think they're that accurate uniformly. Okay. So yes, they can be tested for, but in terms, are they really accurate? That hasn't been my sense from working with these tests before. Okay. All right. So my decision always was at 6 to 9 months, if somebody wasn't getting much better with their energy, I would repair mitochondria. Okay. All right. So to repair mitochondria, you need to do something to repair the fat membrane. I'm going to give you 3 options on that here in just a second. Number 2, if you're not having enough red meat, you want to take the acetyl L-carnitine. Number 3, if you are not treating babesia, take CoQ10. All right, CoQ10 is an antioxidant that acts as a transport vehicle to carry electrons around your mitochondria as part of these chemical reactions. All right. If, however, you are treating babesia with atovaquone, which is found in Mepron and Malarone. You do not want to be on CoQ10 because it will make it ineffective. It'll make the Babesia treatment ineffective, okay? All right, so repair the membrane, acetyl-L-carnitine if you're vegetarian, CoQ10 if you are not on, treating Babesia with atovaquone, okay? And then the fourth thing is be on a really good antioxidant that gets to the inside of the mitochondria to fix them from the inside, all right? And that's glutathione, all right? Liposomal glutathione, all right? So if a person couldn't afford to do all that, there are two things I would have them do is liposomal glutathione, which would be 5 milliliters one time a day, and then take something that repairs the fat. Okay, now you have three options on that, all right? And that's, there used to be you had two options, now you have three, all right? And these all come from Research Nutritionals. Number one, Research Nutritionals has a product called NT Factor Energy, all right? They also have another product called ATP Fuel, and they have a third product now, a new product called ATP 360. And I just want to briefly describe the differences between those, okay? Their product called NT Factor Energy and their product called ATP Fuel have something in it called NT Factor. So both ATP Fuel and NT Factor Energy have in it NT Factor, okay? And NT Factor is a proprietary mix of these fats that make up the covering of your mitochondria. And that product has been researched in a number of studies, and it's shown to give energy improvements and to repair the covering of the mitochondria, okay? So both NT Factor Energy by Research Nutritionals and ATP Fuel have NT Factor in them, okay? They both have nutrients in them that support the mitochondria as well too. And then ATP Fuel also has CoQ10 in it, okay? So the big difference between NT Factor and ATP Fuel is CoQ10, all right? And again, remember, if you're treating Babesia with atovaquone, you don't want to be on CoQ10, all right? Now, my experience, I liked working with NT Factor because I think it was more flexible. It was easier to work with, all right? So you would start at 2 pills 3 times a day for 2 months, and then you go down to 1 pill 3 times a day. ATP Fuel was 5 pills twice a day. It was really hard to take, okay? Because of that, Research Nutritionals has come up with a new product. It's called ATP 360, all right? And they're using there's some preliminary research out on it. It's not published yet, but the preliminary research shows that it does improve energy just as well as the ATP Fuel and NT Factor. It works as effectively at doing that, okay? But it is easier to take than both of those, okay? Because it is 3 pills 1 time a day, all right? And it also has some ingredients in it that are shown to actually increase the mass of the mitochondria. They're not using NT Factor in it. They're using a different fat delivery system to repair the mitochondria. But their studies, again, show that it does work to improve energy, okay? It does have CoQ10 in it as well, okay? So it is an easier to take version, if you will, of the ATP Fuel, although the fat source in it is a little bit different, all right? If you are on, you are treating Babesia, you do not want to take ATP Fuel, nor do you want to take ATP 360, okay? All right, so that's. I hope that, it may sound kind of complicated, but those are your 3 versions, okay? All right, thanks for the question, Colleen. Good luck to you. I'm going to do a quick screen share here. All right, so in terms of mitochondrial repair, I do have an article about that. You want to take a look at the chapter called Energy and Fatigue. Okay, and in here, this is the article that I have. At this point, in this article, I focus on the NT Factor rather than the ATP Fuel because I found it to be less expensive and easier to take. Okay, that's why I focused on that here. Look for a rewrite of this article over the next month. The ATP 360 just got introduced, and I will probably rewrite it to include information about that. Okay, all right. That was a long response, wasn't it? I hope that gave you the information you need, though. Okay. Good luck to you, Colleen. Gail says, hi, Dr. Ross. Hello, Gail. All right. Hello, Nancy. Let's see. Hi, Dr. Ross. Thanks for all you do. You're welcome. My question is about whether zithromycin becomes resistant to bark quickly. I had been on clarithromycin and rifampin for several months, but had to switch LMDs because it was too hard for my son and I to travel across the country. The new LMD has switched me from clarithromycin to azithromycin or Zithromax, which I've been now on since February. Currently, I am taking, besides the zithromycin, 300 milligrams of rifabutin, 400 milligrams of Plaquenil, and Septra, which he was just added last month. Current doc feels zithromycin is better than the clarithromycin because he says clarithro depletes rifabutin levels. Can you please give me your opinion on this? Let me answer that, okay? So when we're treating Bartonella, we want to use antibiotics. What works best are antibiotics that gets inside of the cells, okay? And in my article about how to treat Bartonella called Kills Bartonella, I outline the various ones you can use, all right? So one of the protocols that I liked working with was to use the macrolides, which are either Zithromax or clarithromycin biaxin, along with rifampin. In theory, it is true, rifampin, and therefore its brother or sister called rifabutin, may decrease levels of the clarithromycin, or is it the other way around? I'm blanking right now. There can be a little bit of a decrease in either the levels of the, I think it decreases the level of the rifabutin actually, or the rifampin, okay? However, that in theory, that's true. That is true. Clinically, I didn't find much difference at all, okay? I didn't notice a difference, okay? And if I look at this protocol he has you on, that's a good protocol. I mean, it's using Septra and rifabutin and zithromycin. So there's 3 antibiotics that are working intracellularly. That is a protocol I worked with successfully a number of times to help people with Bartonella. And so on paper, that would work well, okay? What the Plaquenil is being used for here, probably is being used for here, is it can change acid levels inside of cells, and which makes the cells less acidic, more basic, which allows for antibiotics in the cells to work better, okay? Some doctors also use Plaquenil because they think it treats cyst Lyme. In my own practice, I wasn't as inclined to do that because there's some competing research that says it may or may not help. I would tend to work with different agents that treated the cyst Lyme, okay? So in paper, what I would say is there's a good regimen. However, ultimately, we have to see how you respond on it, okay? So if you're not tending to do as well, this is something that you and your provider should still keep working on to fine-tune, to find some way that helps move your Bartonella treatment through, okay? All right. And in my practice, yes, I agree. There is some interactions between clarithromycin and rifampin that changes drug levels, but that doesn't mean it didn't work. And some people it did, even though there were those interactions. So you have to try it and see, basically, okay? All right. Let's see here. Secondly, how do you decide when to stop BART treatment? I was surprised and happy to see that you believe BART treatment may be as short as 4 to 6 months. I've been on full dose, at least 2 intracellular antibiotics since mid-December. I am much improved, although still have horrible ribcage pain and scapular pain and mild remaining knee and shoulder pain. The original LMD thought it might be done with treatment in June, but then I hear of people being treated for 2 years with antibiotics. I'm terrified of stopping antibiotics too soon, but of course, don't want to be on them longer than necessary. I'm also on Sida Acuta and just started a BLT. Thank you so much. Okay, so BLT, everyone, is a formulation by Research Nutritionals that has a number of herbs in it to treat intracellular infections as well as Lyme too, okay? All right. So, Nancy, I can't say specifically where you are in your treatment because, I can't diagnose and I can't totally treat because of where I am. Okay, but I'll give you some observations. So the problem is with these infections like Lyme and Bartonella is that there can be an overlap in the symptoms. Okay, so there can be an overlap in what Lyme causes and an overlap in what Bartonella causes. The way that I would operate in my practice is I would look at the beginning when I started antibiotics, and I would assess what symptoms were likely being caused by Bartonella and what ones were likely being caused by Lyme. And I acknowledge that there can be an overlap, okay? And then I would look and see what happened with all of those symptoms that I thought could be due to Bartonella. Do a majority of them go away? Do a majority of the big ones go away? And if so, at 4 to 6 months, that's when I would decide to stop treating and possibly attribute what's left to Lyme. Okay, that's what I did in my practice, okay? That's something you're going to need to talk with your provider about and see what they have to say about that, okay? All right. All right. Good luck to you, Nancy, and thank you for that question. Hello, Justin. Let's see. Hello, Dr. Ross. You have been very helpful in my treatment. Thank you. The Wildcraft Herbs Cryptolepis has helped with my babesia too. Racing heart has calmed down a bit. I think you mentioned the Cowden method at one point is non-antibiotic treatment for persister Lyme. Can you go into that more, please? Thank you so much, Justin. I wouldn't call the Cowden a persister regimen. So in terms of persisters, everyone, persisters are is an area that's getting a lot of attention in Lyme right now. And what they are is they're some of the spirochetes and some of the cyst have the ability when they've been exposed to antibiotics for a long time to actually slow their metabolism way down and basically go into hibernation and ignore them. Okay, so the reason that's getting a lot of attention right now in Lyme research is we're wondering, is that the reason people with Lyme can't get better? Is that although we kill off a lot of the Lyme germs, there may be this core that's hibernating that we're not able to get at with the current ways that we use antibiotics. Okay, all right. So there's petri dish experiments that were published about 3 years ago at a Northeastern University in Boston. And in those experiments, we've wondered if there could be persisters for some time, but in those experiments, they actually showed that there are. And what they did is they exposed Lyme growing on petri dishes to ceftriaxone, the antibiotic, and they would wait until it actually, under the microscope, went into persisters. And what they found is about 20% of the spirochetes and 20% of the cyst form of Lyme would develop into these persister forms. So not all Lyme goes persister, but at least 20% would. Okay. Which then got a lot of people wondering, well, how do you go after it? Okay, so for instance, there's Dr. Horowitz has come up with an experimented using a leprosy medicine called dapsone to treat Lyme under the idea that dapsone treats leprosy, which is a persister germ. Maybe it would work with Lyme. And his studies showed that there are about 54% of people get improvements that range about 10 to 20% on his regimen. Okay, so he's been out touting that regimen around. Okay, and I write about that. All right. Other regimens, there's a researcher out of Hopkins University, Ying Zhang, medical doctor, that's taken his tuberculosis lab, which tuberculosis has a lot of persisters, and he now is looking at ways of doing experiments on petri dishes to find combinations of drugs that will treat persisters. Okay, all right. And his most recent, he's shown that there are some oral regimens on petri dishes that work. The one that I found that I tried in my practice that I did find helpful for some was to use a combination of doxy, Bactrim, and cefuroxime together. Okay, all right. Now, more recently, he's been doing some mouse experiments that showed some promising results using an IV medicine called daptomycin, the oral medicine doxycycline, and ceftriaxone. And he found that wiped out all persisters in mice. And now he's looking at trying to do a human study. Okay. Now, the problem is daptomycin is probably very difficult, or actually not probably, is very difficult to get your hands on because it's super expensive. And it's basically approved for people with flesh-eating bacteria on their skin. Okay. So the insurance companies are not going to pay for this for Lyme treatment at this point until there's more solid evidence that it may work. But we're all keeping an eye on what Ying Zhang is doing with his research. Okay. Other ways that have been proposed and that I found helpful in my practice for maybe up to about 50%, 60% is to do what I call long pulse regimens. That would be to take antibiotics for 2 months on and 2 months off. That came from an idea from Dr. Burrascano. I mentioned Burrascano earlier tonight. Burrascano claims that he cured his Lyme and the Lyme of some of his patients by basically stopping antibiotics until he got really sick. The idea being that if you get really sick, it must mean the germ has come out of hibernation and is living and is more active and making you sick, okay? And when he couldn't stand it anymore, then you go back on antibiotics. And that wound up working to be about 2 months on, 2 month off regimen, okay? All right. And he claims after doing that about 3 or 4 times, he cured himself, all right? Now, I tried that with a number of my patients, and towards the end, I was doing this with people too. And I found some people get some really good results, and some people got nowhere with that, all right? Now, in terms of the antibiotics, what can you use? Well, you could use prescription antibiotics, or you could go herbal, okay? So in my practice, when I was doing this, I would use 2 herbs found in the Cowden protocol, which would be the Otoba and the cat's claw that I write about on my site. And I would use those as my antibiotics for the 2 months that somebody was on, and then I would take them off for 2 months, okay? And I would do that 3 to 4 times to see if they would get somewhere. One of my best situations, I don't think she was cured, but it was a woman that I treated for a few years with oral antibiotics, and I think injectable antibiotics. And basically, she went from 0 out of 10 energy to about 1 to 2 out of 10 energy, and that was it. And we wound up doing this 2 month on, 2 month off, and it brought her to the level after all those years where her energy was sitting at about 7 or 8 out of 10. It is actually what worked for her to do that, okay? I also have patients that I tried the dapsone treatment on from Horowitz that had done tons of IV antibiotics before seeing me with other physicians. And when they came to see me, they were still sitting at 4 or 5 out of 10 energy. And then we wound up putting them on dapsone, and they're back being a nurse in the hospital now, okay, when she couldn't even work at all right? She had like the best outcome I ever saw on the dapsone. But most people get that 10 to 15, 20% improvement. They don't get all the way well on dapsone. And the trouble with dapsone, it's very hard to take medicine. And about 30%, 40% have to stop taking it because of side effects. So it's a tough medicine, okay? So at this point, we don't have a set way of dealing with persisters, but there are these possible ways of dealing with persisters, okay? All right, and then finally, Ying Zhang, who I mentioned earlier, has been looking at other ways to treat persisters, and he published recently a study looking at using various essential oils, and although I can't remember all of what they were, he found certain combinations of essential oils would also work on persisters. Now, I will tell you, I'm a little skeptical those are going to work in people because they have to get absorbed into our bloodstream. And we know there was a craze, I'll call it a craze, but there was a phase in the Lyme world where a lot of people were doing essential oils all over the place. That was a few years ago. And eventually most of those came back to trying herbal and prescription antibiotics because I think it just didn't work that well. And I think the reason it didn't work well is that they're just really difficult to get absorbed, okay? So I think Ying Zhang, with some of his work, he's got to figure out a vehicle to get those things into the bloodstream. And I don't think we know how to do that yet, okay? All right, let me just show you a quick article here. All right, so here we are. So take a look at my chapter called Infection Treatment Plans and this article called How to Treat Persister Lyme, What Works, okay? And in here I talk about what is persister Lyme. I talk about those Northeastern University studies I was talking about, talk about some of the Zhang studies, what Horowitz is doing with his dapsone, the Burrascano pulsing that I mentioned, okay? And in here I talk about doing a 2 month on, 2 month off. And you can do it with any of the antibiotics I mentioned, including the herbal antibiotics of cat's claw and Otoba. Okay, all right. All right, Justin, keep doing well. All right, thanks for the question. Hello, Virginia. Dear Dr. Ross, can probiotics help with Candida? Yeah, they can. So Candida, by Candida, I assume you mean too many yeast in your intestines and possibly in your vagina as well too. So those yeast compete for territory with bacteria. All right. And if we can put more bacteria, healthy bacteria into the intestines or even into the vagina, it can help to outcompete the yeast to take over territory. Now, for somebody that's got a really bad yeast infection, you often have to add in yeast killers, either herbal or prescription, okay? But probiotics can do a good job. And Virginia, earlier tonight, I talked about ways to really restore the gut. And I talked about using soil-based probiotics in combination with human-based probiotics. And for somebody that's really got bad yeast, that's what I usually suggest doing. Let me show you some articles you can look at for more detail here. All right, so in terms of ways that I found helpful for treating yeast, and take a look in the yeast chapter here, okay? And there is an article I have called Kills Yeast, a Brief Guide, and these are treatments that can work for yeast, okay? Also, here is the article I have on how to use probiotics, all right? So those are the two things that you might focus on. The other thing you might focus on is this article called A Silent Problem. Do you have yeast? It goes over how do you figure out if you have too many yeast in your intestines. All right, and then just one other tip I found helpful for my female patients when I was treating that had vaginal yeast that was getting difficult to take care of. Sometimes what you can actually do is take a probiotic. In this case, I would use the human-based ones. That would be the Bifidobacterium and Lactobacillus type probiotics. Those come in a gel cap usually, okay? So you'd have to do it if it's a variety that comes as a gel cap. So like the HMF Forte that I carry at my store comes in a gel cap, okay? That gel cap in heat and a wet environment like the vagina will wind up melting. And that's a way of depositing your probiotic products right there, okay? All right. Good luck to you. Hello, Gail. Let's see, I just bought some alpha-lipoic acid from your store. It came today, expires next month. That does not seem right to sell something that expires on 6/19. I agree. What I would do though, so that is a product, knowing when I ordered it from the manufacturer, that would have been sometime in the last 2 months. Reread that and make sure that it says expiration. If it does, I'll take it back. And I apologize for that. However, what it might also be saying there, and I just don't happen to have a bottle here where I am, it might also be saying the manufactured date, okay? A lot of these companies are putting the manufactured date, not the expiration date, okay? But if it does say, well, actually, I think you're saying expired. I'll take it back. I apologize for that. We'll have to, I'll be glad to get you a replacement on that, okay? All right. Hello, Lucy. With dysbiosis, why take soil-based probiotics when they are not normal in humans? Won't spores be hard to eradicate if they cause trouble? So it's a good question, Lou. So the spores are a form when the germs are in an inhospitable. Let me rephrase that. So spore forming means that when the bacteria is in what it considers to be a hostile environment, it'll form into these spores, which is a protective nature, okay? But when they get into a not in hospital environment, in other words, an environment where they'll thrive, they actually open up and go back into their regular form, all right? So they're not gonna be in spores inside of you. Once they get through the stomach, they're gonna come out of the spore form and go into their full bacteria form, all right? most of the studies that have been done about these suggest they probably don't even gain a foothold. That what they're really doing, in other words, they don't set up a population. What they're doing is they're supporting the rest of the bacteria in your intestines to thrive and grow, basically. Okay, all right. So I don't think it's an issue, actually. All right. Thanks for that question. Hello, Christopher. Say hi, Dr. Ross. Continuing with severe insomnia despite taking curcumin and glutathione. Any additional ideas to improve sleep? What do you think of CBD oil, cannabis, or hemp? Thanks, Chris. Okay. So there are a variety of herbs that I liked working with in my practice to help with sleep. And I have an article about that. I'll show you that whole article that you can take a look at, okay? So lowering, helping by lowering cytokines is one thing you can do because excess cytokines can disturb sleep. But for some with Lyme, you actually have to do more. Sometimes it's using herbal options. Sometimes it is using prescription options, okay? All right. Of herbal options, CBD and medical marijuana is a possibility. When we look at cannabis, if you will, medical cannabis, there's two varieties. There's marijuana, which means it's high in a chemical called THC, and then there's CBD, and CBD by definition has extremely low THC in it, okay? THC is what gives you the drug high. And THC tends to be what's better at putting people to sleep, unfortunately, okay? So in my practice in Seattle, where we could use medical marijuana, and marijuana was easy to come by because in Washington State, there was both a recreational law that allowed people to use marijuana as well as a medicinal marijuana law, okay? What I discovered in my practice and working with CBD and marijuana is that marijuana probably does a better job of putting people to sleep. Or having something with higher levels of THC in it does a better job of putting people to sleep. There are some people, however, that do benefit from doing CBD to do that, okay? All right. I'll show you my article about CBD and medical marijuana where you can look at the differences between those two chemicals and how they work. But just to be brief in my question, you can try out THC or CBD if you have access to the THC, that something richer in THC, which would be more medical marijuana. That is the direction I would have my patients go because I found it to be more effective at sleep than CBD. Okay, all right. And when I had somebody using medical marijuana for pain or other syndromes, not just for sleep, the way I would tend to do it is use something that was more CBD in the daytime and save my THC type chemicals for nighttime usage, okay? And the reason is that CBD tends to actually be upping compared to THC, which tends to be more downing, okay? All right, okay. All right, so that's what I'll show you that article here in just a minute. In terms of other things to use for sleep, one thing that I found helpful in my practice was to use something called theanine. Theanine is a component of green tea. It is turned in the brain into a chemical called GABA. And if you give more GABA to brain receptors called GABA receptors, that can help put a person to sleep. So that's an herb to consider. You can also consider herbal combinations that would include combinations of things like valerian, hops, yams, wild lettuce, passion flower. You can get combinations of products that have those in it. For instance, Enzymatic Therapy has a product called the Revitalizing Sleep Formula that I carry at my store that is a combination of those. Okay, all right. So I'm going to show you two articles here. All right, let me go ahead and do that here. Oops. Back there. Okay, so I have a chapter on sleep. Okay. And here, there's a few articles you might want to look at. Number one is this one called The Basic Steps, okay? And here I talk about what kind of food you might want to eat before you go to bed, making sure that you're using your bed only for sleep and not for work. making sure that you set your computer screens before you go to bed so it's using a yellow light instead of a blue light that is stimulating. So I talk about the basics, foundational steps you want to do for sleep, okay? In this article, I talk about the herbs that you can use for sleep. All right, and talk about theanine here, 5-hydroxytryptophan can sometimes be used too, melatonin. Talk about the L-theanine combination, the herbal combination that I talk about right here too. Okay. All right. So those are some ideas for you. Okay. All right. And then let's see here. All right. So those are some thoughts for you to take a look at. Oh, I know what I wanted to do. Back here again. All right. So as you all know, this is my supplement store, Marty Ross MD Supplements. Anyone can buy their supplements here. Okay. It used to be where my patients, when I was treating, would get their supplements, but this is where anyone can get the products that I recommend. All right. So in terms of sleep, you can take a look at my section on sleep here, right? To set up the products that way. All right. And this herbal combination that I was telling you about is called the Revitalizing Sleep Formula. That's that one there. This is an L-theanine product. Also, this is another L-theanine product here. This 200 milligrams of Zen. Those would be things for you to take a look at. Okay. All right. All right. Oh, one more thing I just want to say quickly. So I've carried that product called the Revitalizing Sleep Formula for a while. It actually has been manufactured by two companies. All right. There's a company called Integrative Therapeutics, and there's another one called Enzymatic Therapy. At one time, they were actually the same company. But and Integrative Therapeutics is what was sold to doctors' offices, and then they had some of their products available to consumers under the product label called Enzymatic Therapy. All right. This sleep formula called the Revitalized Sleep Formula was sold by both Integrative Therapeutics and both by Enzymatic Therapy. The formula for that sleep formula was designed by a chronic fatigue specialist named Jacob Teitelbaum. Okay. So what's recently happened is Integrative Therapeutics has decided to stop producing it. They just stopped it altogether. Enzymatic Therapy is actually an independent company now. It's not part of Integrative Therapeutics anymore. And they are still manufacturing it. So those of you that have used that product before, on my site, you're now going to see that we don't have it as an Integrative Therapeutics product anymore. We now have it as an enzymatic therapy product. Okay? All right. All right. Hello, Mark. Let's see. Hello, Doc Marty. Thank you for your extreme kindness and helping all of us with your webinars. You're welcome. Thank you. My wife, Natasha, finally had her, you know what? I'm getting clobbered with sunshine here. Just a minute, everyone. You know, coming here from Seattle, that is such a hard thing to do, to block sunshine. It's a little more intense down here in Austin than I had in Seattle, so every now and then I have to. Anyhow, let's see. My wife, Natasha, finally had her consultation with her mold specialist. Good. I'm glad to hear that. Her kidneys are functioning again, and her real-time lab results have her mold numbers all four at the highest they have been in 2 years. The specialist says now it's time to introduce microdoses of binders back into her protocol, starting with 1/16 teaspoon of liquid bentonite clay. Do you have a brand you like? This is due to gliotoxin being the highest number. Also, he wants her on a PEA. What do you know about PEA? 100 milligrams, one pill a day. Can you share with us what it is and what we should watch out for? Thank you again for your kindness and compassion. Yeah, I don't know the PEA. I haven't seen, I know who your specialist is too. I haven't seen him use that before. I'll have to look into that one a little bit. And Mark, I can get back to you separate from the webinar, okay? In terms of the bentonite clay, I tended to use the pills and powders of it. I haven't used the liquid, but I do have in notes what a good liquid variety would be. And I'm going to have to get back to you on that. So I've got some follow-up to do off the webinar tonight. I can get back to you at least on what a liquid variety would be of the bentonite clay. I just don't know about the PEA. I have to look into what he's doing with that. Okay? All right. Thanks, Mark. Hello to Natasha, too. Let's see. Hello, Linda. Let's see. Hello. Thanks for doing this and your book and your website. Oh, you're welcome. So, I don't know if everyone knows this, but I've made. I wrote a book, which actually is just republishing and editing a number of the articles that I have on my Treat Lyme information site. But the book is called Anti-Germ Action Plans, and it basically is a printable resource. You can either get it in paperback. You can get it as a PDF download, or you can even read it on your Amazon Kindle. But it basically has in it my Ross Lyme support protocol, an article on how to deal with Herxheimer reactions, and then all my germ killing articles like kills Babesia brief guide, kills Bartonella brief guide, how to kill yeast, all that stuff. Okay. All right. That book you used to have to buy. But about a week and a half ago, I decided to make it free. And so now anyone can get it free. For those of you that are already subscribers of my Treat Lyme newsletter, if you would look back at your email from about a week and a half ago now, or just type my name, Marty Ross MD, and Anti-Germ Actions Plan, have it search your email. You'll find the email where I gave you the link to download the free copy of the book. To those of you that are not subscribers to my newsletter currently, the way you can get a copy of the book is to subscribe to my newsletter. So that's the way you do it. Okay. And the way you can do that at this point is at the bottom of my website, there's an area you can sign up for my newsletter. You want to go there, add your name to the newsletter, and you'll wind up getting an email from me with a free copy of the book. Okay. So I just want to make you aware of that. And I'm having my web designers develop a link on the book page that you can use to actually sign up for the newsletter as well too, from the book page itself too. But anyhow, let me just do a quick screen share here so I can make sure that everyone's clear on what I just said. Somewhere here, there we go. All right. So if you, basically from any page on my Treat Lyme website, if you scroll down to the bottom here, this is where you can sign up for my newsletter. Okay. I say, keep up with our latest, join our email list and receive a free PDF download book, Anti-Germ Action Plans for Lyme Disease. Okay. So just add your address right there. Okay. All right. Also, if you're visiting this for the first time and you're trying to click your leave button, you're going to see a pop-up show up that gives you the ability to sign up for my newsletter from that as well too. Okay. But yeah, I want as many people to have that information. The other thing I'm doing with my email list too, if you sign up, you're a new subscriber, you're going to get 10 Lyme health tips from me over the course of about 10 days on that too. Okay. All right. Thanks, Linda. All right. Hello, Pia. Since my disease really broke out after a traffic accident more than a decade ago, I've had a special kind of pain. When I wake up, if I've fallen asleep during the daytime, it feels like muscle pain. It's the worst in my arms, where it also started from the beginning, and it can be excruciating. Any idea what that can be? And congratulations with your decision, or with the decision verdict in your case. Thank you. I appreciate that. Pia is talking about my medical board, which had been carrying on two discussions with me. One is a concern they had over how I prescribed a sleep medicine to manage pain in one of my patients that got benefit from it. I still contend. I understand why they looked at me, but it helped her. She had been quite ill, and Lyme and mold toxin illness had been referred to hospice. That's how sick she was. Pain specialist started her on the sleep medicine called Ambien. I kept that going, but I got referred to my board by a pharmacist for doing it. And that's what brought me to their attention. When they looked at what I was doing with my patient, they became really concerned about how I manage Lyme disease, how I use alternative medicine, et cetera, and opened up a new front in their investigation against me. And that is they had me supply them with 20 different medical records from patients with chronic fatigue, Lyme, mold toxin illness, and fibromyalgia. And I thought they really had made up their decision. They were going to take my license. They were looking for they just needed to dot their I's and cross their T's. But anyhow, we got the news back about 4 weeks ago now that they are dropping that investigation without any findings. And I should be able to eventually get them to let go of me around their concerns about the use of Ambien that I did with my one patient as well too. So I'm not totally out of the woods yet, but getting there. And so that's what you're referring to. So thank you. I appreciate that. Let's see. In terms of your pain, I don't know why this is. I mean, if this happened after a car accident, and if you were seeing me, I would, and I bet they've already done this, but I would talk to your physicians to make sure that they should be looking to make sure you don't have some kind of a neurologic impingement or nerves being squeezed somewhere. Okay. I suspect they've looked for that, but I don't know why Lyme in and of itself would cause this independently though. Okay. All right. All right, everyone. I'm going to do a quick screen. I'm going to do one screen share here. So actually, I'm not going to. That's it. It's at 7:30 my time here. I'm gonna get moving on with my evening here. Got a couple Basenjis that need to be dealt with. My dogs, and many of you know them. So listen, everyone. I will be sending out an email to you tomorrow morning. It'll have information in it on how to sign up for the next webinar, but we're taking next week off. Okay. So this will be in June when I'll begin the webinars again. You should get that email from me somewhere around 9:30-ish or so Central Standard Time in the morning. And again, if you don't get the email, I described at the beginning where you can find that. Thanks for being here tonight. And thanks to everyone for the support I get from you. I really appreciate that. Good night, everyone. And I hope everyone keeps recovering. Okay. Bye-bye.